Welcome, everybody. It's Monday, March 27th. John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, here to talk to you about the latest news from Ukraine. As always, let me get TikTok rolling on my iPad, and then we'll take about 2 or 3 minutes for folks to arrive on YouTube, TikTok, and everywhere else. So why don't you all introduce yourselves? I'm going to flip my camera here. Boom. Excellent. Yeah, introduce yourselves. Say where you are from, if you would. It's kind of a nice tradition we have here. Ooh, microphone. Oh. Okay, hang on. Being evil. All right. 1 sec. Audio. All right, let me try that now. Is the mic better now? I was playing around with the audio controls and I may have screwed it up. How's the mic now? Is it still being weird or no? How's it now, folks? Still very low. Ugh, come on. All right, hold on. I'm going to reboot my... Sorry, guys. I'm rebooting... All right, how's it sound now, everybody? I just came back on. I mean, you guys I know on TikTok are fine. YouTube, etc. I just came back in. How's it now? I had to reboot to see if it would help the sound. La la la. Somebody type something over there on TikTok. Still can't hear. Okay, that makes no sense. Oh, evil little device here. All right, trying one more time here. I mean, I can try to turn this up. I don't want it to be too loud on TikTok. On TikTok, it's fine. I mean, on YouTube. All right, YouTubers, is it up or no? La la la, testing, testing, testing. Why is it being so evil? Well, you guys, yeah, TikTokers, it's working fine. All right, I'm turning it up even higher on YouTube. I just don't want it to blare out, but all right. Is that any better now or not? Sorry, guys. TikTokers, we got to wait anyway for folks to come. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing this today. You know what? Is my mic not even working? Is my mic? Hello, 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 hello. Yeah? Well, all right. What do you do? All right. Well, better, but a little more. Well, okay. I can go more. All right. That's as loud as my mic goes. I don't want to break it out here. All right. All right. Roshin, it's enough? Okay, that's fine. I don't want to overdo it either because I've got it turned up all the way. Okay. Anyway, hey guys. Well, you know what? This is perfect. Usually we wait 3 minutes anyway to start the show. And this time we had 3 minutes of technical difficulties, so it worked. And now, of course, it's way too much for the YouTubers. All right. I'm turning this down a little bit for... All right. I'm putting it halfway here, guys. All right. All right. YouTubers. I'm sorry. TikTokers. How's it sounding now? I put it a little bit... You know what? TikTokers, I just unplugged the microphone for you guys, so now you guys are getting the microphone on my iPad for the TikTokers. All right, that way it'll work out. You get a little bit of echo on TikTok, but at least without this good mic, we don't have to worry about you getting so loud. All right, YouTubers, I put you louder again. All right, I put YouTube louder. There's always, the problem too is there's like a 3 or 4 second delay. All right, YouTubers, I put you up. Let me know, is it back to better again or not? Okay, that's fine. All right, let's get rolling, guys. So thank you. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my nightly show, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Today's show, we're going to be talking a lot about nuclear war because the Russians have gone insane on this topic in the last week. Thank you, Gator Girl, for the heart. All right, the sound has been fixed, so give it a rest on the sound, guys, on YouTube. There's nothing else we can do. And it's just interfering at this point. So we're fine. All right, so it's day 396 of Putin's 10-day war. The way the show works, in case anybody's new here, for the first half of the show or so, I'm going to be giving the news. Second half of the show, we'll be taking your guys' questions. For you guys on TikTok, thank you for the gift there, by the way. Who was that? L with the hand hearts and... It's a kite. Oh, Kimmy with the kite. Thank you, Kimmy. The way it works for you guys here on TikTok is you can submit your questions via the Q&A link in my profile. For you guys on YouTube, everywhere else, you can obviously use the comment box at the bottom of the screen to submit questions. Also, I would very much appreciate if you guys keep the gifts coming on TikTok and on YouTube, because I do this for free. I've been doing it full time since the war broke out, and you literally pay my bills and make it possible for me to do that. So voila. So there you go. So thank you for that. I appreciate your guys' gifts. Keep them coming. All right, so let's talk about Russia and nukes again. Again. Oh, let me tell really quick. Somebody just mentioned over on YouTube that they came out and came back in and the volume was fine. So if you're still having issues, stop you. Like you said, go out of YouTube, close it, come back in, and it may fix it. All right, let's roll, folks. So yeah, the Russians are being crazy about nukes again. I'm going to make a general observation here. Oh, thank you for the gloves, the hands at the superpowers, Cherry or Cheryl. I'm calling it Cherry. Cherry, it's your drag name. I don't know, Cheryl. Louis, that was the other superpower. I knew I saw somebody else do that. And thank you for Kimmy and Matt. You guys are going crazy with the gifts tonight on TikTok. Thank you for that. So the Russians are going nuts again with the nuclear stuff. And keep in mind, oh, hey, Patricia, my friend Patricia is here. You and I have to catch up. I helped judge the MSFS oral exams last week. It was quite fun. So we'll have to talk later. So basically, the Russians are threatening nukes again. Now, first of all, they do this every week. And when I say every week, I mean literally every week they do this. So that's the first reason why you shouldn't care. Second of all, it was very interesting, actually. So last week, we had, I kid you not, 7 threats of nuclear war from Russia by 7 different people, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it was crazy. Thank you, Andrew, for the hat. It was absolutely crazy. And what happened then on the weekend, Putin announced, now mind you, just because Putin says it doesn't make it true. The Russians lie a lot when it comes to their foreign policy, when it comes to their official statements. They just lie. A lot of what they do is propaganda. A lot of what they do is psychological warfare, meaning it's stuff meant to scare you, even though it's nothing they're really going to do. They pretend they're going to do something. Thank you, Andrew, for the hat and mustache, if I didn't say that earlier. So what they did this weekend is the Russians announced that they were going to be putting tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus. Now, Belarus, let me get my handy-dandy map here. Thank you. Who was that? Kanowski and Annie for that. Oh, and the boxing vest from Matthew. Or the boxing robe. So Belarus here's Ukraine, okay? Russia's all the way over here, and Belarus is up here, okay? So it's a dictatorship up here, very good friends with Russia, bordering Poland, bordering the Baltic states all the way over here, like way up. And they're a dictatorship that's been helping Russia in the war. And Putin announced that he was going to be moving tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus. Now, actually, and mods on YouTube, can you just help me shut down the conversation about the sound? Just if somebody asks, just tell them to go out and come back in or whatever, but the feedback is confusing me, so thank you. Tactical nuclear weapons. Okay, we've talked about these guys before. Tactical nuclear weapons are the smaller nuclear weapons. And I know it may sound funny to talk about small nuclear weapons, but they really are. They're not the kind of thing that you would use to blow up a city, for example, right? Those are the big nukes. Those are the big nukes that come on ICBMs, like the huge, scary rockets. These are the intent, at least, of a tactical nuke is to be used, strategically at a tactical level, at a small level. In other words, they're the kind of things you might use to blow up a Russian military headquarters, or again, the Ukrainian parliament or something, right? In other words, a large nuclear weapon would be you want to destroy Kyiv, the Ukraine's capital. A small one would be you want to destroy the Pentagon, right? Or even smaller than the Pentagon. So that's not to suggest that, they're still nuclear weapons. So obviously nukes are nukes, right? But there is a difference between the big scary ones and the smaller scary ones. Russia's talking about moving some of the smaller ones to Belarus. It doesn't matter. First of all, it's probably a lie. Putin, for example, moved a number of planes. I think I had it here. I forget how many. A number of airplanes over to Belarus, claiming that, because they're the kind of planes that can carry Russian tactical nukes, right? So he brought the planes in to try to convince people maybe he moved the nukes there. Probably didn't, because again, they fake. They're talking about now building storage facilities in Belarus for Russian tactical nuclear weapons. Again, talking about maybe building, right? Let's wait and see if these facilities even get built. And if they do, let's see if they've even got nuclear weapons. When it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter. Oh, okay, thank you, Dan. It doesn't really matter, first of all, if Russia were to put the tactical nukes there. I mean, yes, it matters in a general international relations kind of way, right? We don't want nuclear weapons sort of proliferating and spreading around the world. Now, Putin did make clear, which is interesting. He did make clear that even if the nukes go to Belarus, he's not handing them over. He won't trust Belarus's dictatorship, Lukashenko, to actually operate the nukes. That's good news. Second of all, Russia's weapons can already hit Ukraine. They can already hit the West. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't really matter if Russia moves, nuclear weapons into Belarus, and in the sense of there's no greater risk for us, okay? But it's obnoxious. And it's intended to be obnoxious. Putin did this, claims it's in response to Britain giving weapons that, anti-tank weapons that have depleted uranium tips on them or whatever, to the Ukrainians, because basically depleted uranium is very complicated. I sort of read you guys some official stuff last week, but it's Ukrainium. I'm telling you, I want a new element in the periodic table called Ukrainium. Whenever we're talking about uranium and Ukraine, I always say Ukrainium. I haven't seen it written up anywhere. I want Ukrainium to become a thing. Thank you, Danke Shane, for that. So you take uranium, and when it is spent after being used, for example, for nuclear reactor, whatever, you can end up with this depleted uranium that basically it's radioactive, but it's not generally dangerously radioactive, okay? It's the kind of thing, for example, generally speaking, I mean, it can be, but thank you, 6 Hour, and who was that? Chuck as well. It gives off, I guess, alpha radiation, which is radiation that can't even penetrate your skin. Now, it would be dangerous to you if you inhaled it or swallowed it, okay? But in general, it's not you could hold it in your hand and you'd be fine. It's not radioactive in that sense. The reason the military folks like it, thank you, Newton, is it's the metal itself is super dense. I mean, super dense, so that it's able to just punch through a tank, for example. It could just destroy, actually, it does destroy Russian tanks. Now, it should be mentioned that the Russians use these missiles as well. The Russians use depleted uranium for their weapons as well. So for the Russians to pretend like it's some scary new thing no one's ever heard of, they have it too. Second of all, the Russians trying to pretend like it's a nuclear weapon. The Brits are giving, they literally said nuclear components, weapons with a nuclear component. It's not. I mean, it simply isn't. And again, the Russians themselves have fielded these things. In any case, what we're seeing actually going on here is Putin's afraid of losing. And my guess is, and again, by the way, last week, this was coordinated last week, which is also very interesting as far as what this was. Sorry, I'm looking here. I see Lara's. Lara, I'll get to, or Laka, I'll get to yours in a second here, just making sure Dan's. Oh, there's Dan's. Okay, I'll get to you guys in a quick second here. Things aren't going well for Russia. The reason Putin is talking about nukes, and mind you, it was Putin, it was the defense minister, it was the foreign minister, it was the deputy foreign minister, it was Medvedev, which, by the way, I think we should drink whenever we have to talk about Medvedev, because he's the former Russian prime minister and president, was considered a lefty, a moderate, and now he's a lunatic. I mean, he's a total, literally 3 times a week, this guy, last week might have been 4 times, this guy talks about nuclear war. It's the only message they've got. Well, they're trying to scare you all. They're trying to scare all of us. They're trying to provide information, basically not information, what about the words I'm looking for? They're trying to provide something that Fox News can talk about, something that Donald Trump can talk about, right? Something that the anybody, all the American extreme left, the crazy, I mean, mind you, it's the extreme, but the extreme left in America. Elon Musk, right? Elon Musk, can't go a week without talking about nuclear war. He's very afraid of nuclear war. Donald Trump this weekend. Donald Trump, when he was doing the talk in Texas this weekend, talked about nuclear war. Again, very worried about nuclear war. Putin's trying to give them ammunition. I mean, no pun intended on the word ammunition. He's trying to give them ammunition. He's trying to give them something to talk about. The idea here is that you scare people enough about nuclear war that people say, it's just not worth it, right? We've got to make this war stop. It could go nuclear. And it makes people, which kind of makes sense, actually. I mean, as far as, it's a smart tactic, right? If you have to juggle in your own mind, well, Ukraine versus the whole planet dying, most people are going to say save the planet. By the way, Ukraine or the United Kingdom dying, most people are going to say, not Ukraine, the United Kingdom versus the planet, right? I mean, global thermonuclear war tends to win, right? We all want to avoid that. So it's not a dumb strategy. They're basically trying to scare you guys because they can't win militarily. Now, the reason I was saying this about last week, which was funny, is they were having so many Russian officials talk about this that it clearly was the strategy. Then Putin mentions the tactical nukes, which, as I already told you, it doesn't really matter. And by the way, the other issue with the tactical nukes that Putin's talking about putting in Belarus, these are the nuclear weapons that our experts have already figured out the Russians aren't going to use because there's no point in them using them. Now, let me really quick get to if the questions are... Oh, okay. Thank you, Laka. I didn't see that. Thank you for that. Dan is saying, who cares if they put them there? Kaliningrad between Poland and Lithuania is already closer to mainland Europe than Belarus. It's all a scare tactic. Yeah, Kaliningrad is that territory that's southwest of Lithuania. Thank you for the flowers there. Who was that? Kidausi. It's the territory that's southwest of Lithuania, kind of northeast Poland. And it's a little Russian. If you look on the map, it's kind of wild because it's this little Russian territory in the middle of Europe. They've already got nukes there. It's in any case, I'm trying to think what I was sort of, because I've got lots of different points to bring up in this. Oh, tactical nukes. So one of the other points I've talked about a lot, but it's worth reminding folks, is the military experts agree that it doesn't make sense for Russia to even use to them using it. There's no military advantage. It's not like Russia would drop enough nukes to change what the battle on the ground. The part of the reason is because Russia still wants to like take over this territory. Thank you, Evolving Fate, for the lights there, right? Keep in mind, this is territory. I mean, again, it's all of this and this. This is all the territory Russia's occupying. Russia wants to keep Russia already. They didn't, but they did, right? Russia already made that territory Russia. So now they claim all that Ukrainian land is Russia now, even though it's legally not. Why would Russia want to nuke land that Russia wants to occupy and make part of Russia, right? It doesn't make sense. Because that's one thing. With these nukes, for example, even though they're small, they still carry the same environmental damage that a big nuke would cause. It's just a smaller area it might hit, but in terms of destroying the land, and then you've got to move the land, right? You've got to get all that dirt, all the buildings. It's terrible. So Russia won't use them. Second reason Russia won't use them, India and China. India and China would freak out if Russia used nuclear weapons, we believe, in Ukraine, and they need India and they need China basically to buy their natural resources that Europe is no longer buying. Well, because Europe, they were cut off, but also Europe basically worked it out now that Europe has weaned itself off of Russia. Third reason is because NATO would probably enter the war. The U.S. should have made very clear, and I suspect U.S. allies as well, Germany, France, etc., that if Russia were to use even small nukes, because of the shock factor, thank you, Bonnie, for those, because of the shock factor of using nukes, right, using nuclear weapons at all, even small ones, NATO would probably enter the war. And if NATO entered the war in Ukraine, Russia would lose. Now, if a nuclear war between NATO and Russia, nobody wins. We can both destroy each other easily. And basically, therefore, I don't think it would ever happen. It's the same thing that happened during the Cold War, right? With the Soviets and the Americans. We both knew that we could destroy each other, so we tended not to use our nuclear weapons. We never used our nuclear weapons against each other, though we got close. Cuban Missile Crisis got close, for example. Thank you, Addie, for the superpower there. But in any case, it just annoys me because they're bringing this up, and I see people talk about it, which I understand. And I see you guys on the comments on TikTok. I see the folks on our Discord that talk, and people get worried. And it's understandable that they get worried. But again, the Russians keep bringing this up because they're not doing well, okay? Now, I should say really quick, too, which I didn't kind of explain this final point. What they're hoping to do is scare you. But why are they trying to scare you? Because, as I said, they want to basically convince Fox News and everybody else to have another talking point. Oh, the Russians threatened nuclear war 6 times this week. Why? Because they want to scare you into shutting down aid for Ukraine. They want you to sit there and say, you know what? It's just not worth it anymore. We ought to cut Ukraine off. That's what's going on. let me see here. There's another nuclear little thing from. Oh, by the way, quick little thing from China. It also should be noted, and this is kind of obnoxious of Putin, I will say, but he made the threat to, not the threat, I guess the promise, the commitment to move these nuclear weapons into Belarus like 3 days after he signed an agreement with the Chinese that stated nuclear threats are unacceptable. You know, we no one should be making nuclear threats, and we shouldn't be basically exporting our nukes and putting them in other countries. Putin turns around 3 days later and does exactly what the agreement said that they shouldn't do. Now, mind you, I mean, I had said last week, and I think a lot of the experts would think the same thing, that that language popped up in the agreement because the Chinese wanted it there. Putin and the Chinese leader had a summit in Moscow. Sorry, I'm assuming you guys remembered that. They had a summit in Moscow last week, and they signed this agreement. Well, that fact about nuclear weapons was there because the Chinese wanted it there. So for Putin to 3 days later basically break the promise on nukes is kind of an FU to the Chinese, really, which, you know, it may be a small point, but it's obnoxious. I'm sure the Chinese didn't love it. Thank you, Bonnie, for that. Let me do a quick pitch on my Discord and then tell you one other thing that a Russian politician said about nukes. And I will say this one made me laugh, which is good because this is the kind of thing that I think is at least, we can break the, I don't want to say break the monotony a little, but at least if we're going to talk about nuclear weapons, it might help a little bit to at least talk about stuff that's ridiculous. So really quick, I do have a Discord, by the way. We've got a Discord, which is discord.aravosis.com. You can find the link on my TikTok and my profile. That's a link to all my links. You guys, aravosis.com will get you there, or just discord.aravosis.com. And the Discord community is a kind of a chat community we have. It's pretty cool because we've got almost 1,700 people there. And we've been able to raise a lot of money for Ukraine. We've been raising money for Ukraine separately, but also doing it via these auction of really cool stuff from Ukraine that we've gotten. A number of the things we're auctioning off right now. I'll show you just a couple. Well, the Zelensky sweatshirts, which I don't have my Zelensky sweatshirt near me, but the really cool green sweatshirts with the logo, the trident in the middle. We found the company he buys them from and bought them. We've got really cool Ukrainian fridge magnets. This is, you know, commemorating the Russian warship Go F Yourself, Moskva, that sank. That's the Ukrainian soldier giving the boat the finger. Little pieces of the Berlin Wall that I broke off in 1989 when I was there, literally right when the wall was opening up, December 3rd of 1989. So that's kind of cool. And I've got another piece of the Russian fighter jet that was shot down over Ukraine. Very long story on this one, but basically a Russian Su-30SM was shot down over Ukraine March of last year. They finally found the wreckage in August and decided to chop up pieces and make money for charity. So we've got actually this piece is a cool piece because it's actually got the rivet in there, which is kind of neat. Show you guys. Made from titanium, pretty cool because it's like totally light. I mean, this thing, there's nothing to it, but it's super strong. But in any case, piece of a Russian fighter jet. We've got the history of the jet. I've even got the history of the pilot that's kind of neat because we know who the pilot is. He was captured, and then allegedly the Ukrainians claim that the pilot then started fighting for the Ukrainians. So I've got a whole fact sheet on it. Anyway, very cool stuff. That's for auction as well. And we basically take half the auction money, channel it back into Ukraine. Lately, we've been spending a lot of the money on camouflage nets for the Ukrainian military. And I've been putting updates on the nets in the Discord so you guys can see it there. I just put one up today of a couple different videos of them showing off the nets and their new net for the summer that's black. So they were showing that off for us to show you guys that you helped pay for that. Thank you, Dinocrats, or Dinocratis. Any case, there you go. But do check out the Discord because, as I said, half the money goes to Ukraine, half the profits go to me because I am doing this for free. And it basically helps me pay my bills, and it helps me keep doing the show. So thank you. So please do keep the gifts coming, all of you guys as well. All right, let's go back to this. So Patrushev. So Nikolai Patrushev is an influential advisor to Putin, and he as well decided to threaten nuclear war, I think today, actually. The thing is, the quote from him is so ridiculous that, hang on a sec. The quote from him is so ridiculous that I was saying on the video I did on TikTok for you guys that I feel like we're dealing with a cartoon villain, you know? I mean, it's like Moose and Squirrel. You know, it's such a bizarre, thank you, Leanne and Tom, for those gifts. It's such a bizarre, listen to this quote from him, okay? American politicians, trapped by their own propaganda, remain confident that in the event of a direct conflict with Russia, the United States is capable of launching a preventive missile strike after which Russia will no longer be able to respond. He's talking about claiming that America thinks we could start a nuclear war with Russia, but because we attacked them first, we'd win the war. It's absolute BS. No one thinks that here. He's claiming that. He responds, this is short-sighted stupidity and very dangerous. Russia is patient. Listen, this is, okay, first of all, I'm going to save the last line, the second line for last. Russia has modern, unique weapons capable of destroying any adversary, including the United States. Really? Like, really? I mean, it's literally Boris and Natasha. The obviousness of these guys' threats. I mean, I'm sorry, but there's something wrong with these people. And this is why I'm saying these are threats they're being made to make. And the threats are so stupid that they don't even know how to make it. I mean, that the Russians are saying, America, you need to realize we have nuclear weapons that could destroy you. And it's like, really? Gosh, I never knew that Russia had nuclear weapons since 1949, right? Who knew, right? That's the first thing. Second of all, listen, wait, there was one line here. Listen to this line. Russia is patient and does not intimidate anyone with its military advantage. Russia, what they're talking about there, thank you, Royce, for the cap there. What they're talking about there is the Russians have, and Bonnie for the boxing gloves. I'm just looking back really quick. Leanne for the heart. Russia has more nuclear weapons than we have. Russia's got like 6,000. I forget whether we've got 5,000, something like that. And Russia's got more, but it doesn't really matter because we destroy each other, right? I mean, Russia fires their, actually, here's the important part. And the thing is, the Russians know this. I just don't get what they're doing with this. We have nuclear submarines. They have nuclear submarines. If we fire at Russia and let's say we do attack Russia, right? And we knock out mainland Russia. Thank you, Iggy, for the paper crane. The Russians would respond and they would use their nuclear submarines and attack America, and it would be the end of America. Ooh, thank you for the arcade guide, Dinokratis. Thank you. That was very generous. I know that. Thank you for that. Thank you. The Russians would respond with their nuclear submarines and destroy us. And if Russia were to attack us first, and let's say they just destroyed, they knocked out all of America's top cities and the Pentagon and everybody else, our nuclear submarines would survive because that's what they're for. The subs hide and you can't find them. And our nuclear submarines would destroy Russia. Nobody, I mean, literally, nobody thinks that we're going to attack Russia first and knock out all of their nukes and win a nuclear war. That's just not, thank you, Dark Phoenix, for that. It's for him to say this is insane, that they say, oh, that's what America's policy is. And for Russia to say this weekend, we are patient and we don't intimidate anybody with our nuclear advantage. All these guys do is try to intimidate us with their nuclear advantage, right? All they do is talk 5, 6, 7 times a week for the last year. We have nuclear weapons. This is what I'm telling you guys. It's done in such a sloppy manner. It is done in the manner of a very weak person who knows they've lost, who knows they can't win the fight, and they just basically bark really loud and to try to, it's a dog. It's a small dog that's afraid of you, and it tries to bark really loud to scare you, but the dog's actually more scared than it is attacking. The Russians are losing this war. Now, again, losing has many definitions, though, right? Just because Russia isn't winning doesn't mean Ukraine is going to kick all the Russians out anytime soon. I think that's going to take a while, right? But Russia, this is, as I started the show by saying, this is, let me pull this up again. This is day 396 of a 10-day war. The war was supposed to be 10 days. It's been 396 days, right? A year and a month. This isn't going well for the Russians. That's why they keep talking about nukes. They want to freak you out. Don't be freaked out. That's all I can say is just don't fall for the bluff. They're bluffing. They're bluffing. In any case, let's move on. So Hungary approved Finland joining NATO today. You know that Sweden and Finland have been trying to join NATO. All the NATO countries except Hungary and Turkey have approved. Turkey is playing major games. Turkey is run by a wannabe dictator named Erdogan. Hungary is run by a wannabe dictator named Orban, by the way. Different kind of dictatorships, but they're both anti-democratic. They're not Democrats in the small d sense of the word. They do not believe in democracy. Neither government does. Turkey decided to play games because of concerns about, the what do you call them? The Kurdish rebels and all this kind of garbage. It's BS. The Hungarians, who the hell knows what the Hungarians are doing? I mean, seriously, I don't think anybody can quite figure out what the Hungarians are up to, other than, actually, I think we do probably know. Thank you, Marcy. Now that I think about it, the European Union held back a lot of money for Hungary because Hungary, if the sun gets too bright, I think it's only going to be for a minute. I can always put up my sheet behind the window, but I think it'll be okay. Hungary didn't receive a lot of European money it should have received because Hungary is no longer a democracy, and Hungary wants that money. It's like billions of dollars. And I think the way Hungary's trying to get the money is by basically saying, well, we're not going to let these two countries join NATO, even though they need to join NATO. Hungary today finally approved Finland, but not Sweden, because Hungary is still being an anti-democratic jerk. And Turkey has done nothing on either of them, but it's a step forward. Supposedly, we heard in the last couple of weeks that Turkey was basically agreeing that they would let Finland go through, which is still a big deal, that they would let Finland go through, but that they, turn the light there, but they weren't going to let Sweden. So let's see what happens, but it's a step in the right direction. Russia, according to the Wall Street Journal today, Russia is helping Iran gain advanced digital surveillance capabilities as Tehran seeks deeper cooperation on cyber warfare. Thank you, Jesse, for the superpower. Germany is sending, Germany's tanks are arriving. Listen to this. The 18 Leopard 2 tanks pledged by Germany to Ukraine have been transferred to Ukraine, per Der Spiegel, which is a big German publication today. And along with the German vehicles, the Ukrainians said today that they had received Strykers, armored vehicles, and Cougars, mine-resistant infantry mobile vehicles from the United States, Challenger main battle tanks from Britain. These are the things that they've already received. Challenger main battle tanks from Britain, as well as Marder infantry fighting vehicles from Germany. All of those are very good. All of those will be very important for Ukraine's big offensive this spring. As you guys know, we were sort of waiting for Russia and Ukraine's big counterattacks against each other this spring. Russia's already happened when we didn't even realize it. We were sort of keeping an eye on what Russia was doing in Bakhmut especially. Bakhmut, small, irrelevant, frankly, I don't mean to offend the Ukrainians, but irrelevant strategically Ukrainian town all the way over here. The Russians have also been trying to fight in Vuhledar, which is like down here. Now they're trying to blow up, or they are blowing up, but they're trying to take over Advivka? Avitka? I'm not going to pronounce it right, but it's another Ukrainian town with many I's in the name. It's right north of Donetsk, so right here. In all of them, the Russians are not doing well. They're not winning. Institute for the Study of War already said today that it's not you Gator Girl. Thank you, Stephen. I'll get to that in a second. And I know on TikTok, but it looks like you're back. What was I going to say with this, with the martyrs? Beep, 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 beep. Oh, but so Russia did its offensive already. It kind of happened when none of us, Avdiivka. Okay, I'm going to go with Avdiivka or Avdiivka. Russia already did its offensive. None of us even noticed it happening. They did it, and it was sort of like, oops, it happened. It was not effective. They didn't get almost any land back. The number I saw a couple weeks ago was Russia won 0.04. Russia added to the territory Russia holds in Ukraine, they added 0.04%. That whole month of February, with Russia killing all of its troops, and part of March, killing all of its troops, losing all of its equipment in Ukraine, in the east, especially in Bakhmut, but also in Vuhledar, Russia was able to increase the land it holds in Ukraine by 0.04%. Horrific, horrific. So now what we realized in retrospect was this was Russia's spring offensive. I mean, this was it. What they did was it, and it's over, or it's coming to an end. Thank you, Kanausi, and not much happened. The Ukrainians now are getting ready for their counteroffensive. The discussion, I mean, the concept overall for a counteroffensive is Russia's controlling about 18% of Ukraine. So again, everything, where my fingers are to the right and to the down and to the right, all of this is controlled by Russia. And the thought is that the Ukrainians are going to try to get back as much as they can, and that they're going to use the, thank you, Jean-Marc, that they're going to use the Western weapons. So that's part of the reason they've been holding off. Part of it is the weather. They're waiting for spring. Well, they're waiting for the spring muds to pass. It's now the muddy season, which makes it very hard to operate a lot of vehicles in the mud. So they're waiting for that to pass, for the ground to firm up a little. And they are waiting for as many of the Western weapons to arrive as possible. Now, Stephen had a question. Stephen, hang on a second. Let me put on my glasses so I can see your question. When should we worry that Russia isn't posturing on the use of nuclear weapons and is actually drinking their own Kool-Aid? Clearly, they drank their own Kool-Aid on how the special operation would go. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there was less of a... Hold on 1 second here. Invading your neighbor carries less risk than using nuclear weapons. If you use nuclear weapons... First of all, if they use nuclear weapons against us, it is a nuclear war and we all die. They know that. So clearly the hurdle to use nuclear weapons against us, for example, is going to be way higher than the hurdle to bomb their neighbor, Ukraine, right? On its face. They use it against us, we use it back. The hurdle to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine, not against us, but the smaller weapons in Ukraine is, or the threshold, I would say, is lower than the threshold of bombing America, right? So bombing Ukraine with nukes, much more possible than bombing America. Bombing America with nukes, America nukes back, world ends. Russia won't do it. Bomb Ukraine with nukes, will America nuke back? No, I'll tell you right now, we won't. Russia may worry, they may worry that we might. So that's one reason they might not use it. But they know that we would enter the war. If they did that, it would be considered such a grave violation of international norms and the precedent that would be sent. America would not want to, NATO as well, would not want to let Russia get away with using nuclear weapons in Ukraine because it would set a precedent around the world for everybody else who has nukes or is aspiring to get nukes to use. For example, India and Pakistan. Does that mean they could use nukes against each other next time and the world would go, well, it's okay, right? So there's... So the threshold, I think, is still way too high for Putin to use the nukes. Oh, and finally, excuse me, as a result, that means NATO would enter the war. And if NATO enters the war, Russia loses. You know, Russia and NATO both have the nuclear weapons to destroy each other. Specifically, the US, the Brits, and the French all have nuclear weapons, okay? We would destroy the Russians, they would destroy us. But if they were to use nukes in Ukraine and it forced us to enter the war, not in a nuclear way, but in a conventional way, right? With weapons short of nukes, that, oops, I was telling you, that's the, so cool. Military helicopter, I don't know, that may not have been Air Force One. No, I mean, a Marine, that was not Marine One, that was another military. I don't live very far from the White House, so I'm always getting the president's helicopter flying over, but that was a different one because it was a military helicopter with the door open on the side, going like sideways, turning to head towards the White House, so I could actually see inside. It was very cool. Anyway, it was kind of neat. But sorry, let me take this back to your question, then we'll go on. So, I mean, you know, when should you start worrying about Russia's posturing? I think you should start worrying about Russia's posturing when it makes sense for them to use the nukes, okay? For example, if we were invading Russia and about to, if the Ukrainians were invading Russia and about to take Moscow, then I would worry about Moscow using nukes. That, you know, it might make sense for them. I mean, sense meaning strategic sense from a Russian perspective. You don't want to lose Moscow. That makes sense. Ukraine attacking Crimea doesn't make sense to me. I mean, yeah, Putin would love Crimea. Crimea is, or Putin loves, I should say. Crimea is the Ukrainian territory in the south here. Oops, there we go. It was attacked when the Russians invaded in 2014. They stole this territory and, you know, made it part of Russia. It's not part of Russia. The Russians claim it's part of Russia. Supposedly, Putin loves this more than everything else in Ukraine, and this is the one he might go nuclear over. I still think he's bluffing. Because it just doesn't make sense for him to use the nukes. It wouldn't help him hold on to it, and it would turn the whole world against him. So to me, I will say finally, I don't think we should ever be blasé about the nuclear threat. The fact that the Russians keep talking about it gives us pause, and it should give us pause, because even if there's a 0.001% chance, right? I mean, that kind of logic. What bothers me, though, is the Russians know this. And they know that by by even mentioning nukes, we have to take it seriously because they're nuclear weapons. And they know it, and they know it's going to scare us. In any case, yeah, I just don't. In any case, that's my take. I don't think it ever makes sense for them to use nukes. Again, Cuban Missile Crisis was different. Cuban Missile Crisis, because I saw people bring that up on maybe it was I don't remember. Maybe it was one of the trolls. Somebody was bringing it up on TikTok, and with the Cuban Missile Crisis, we had America blockading Cuba. I mean, we literally had both countries, and the Berlin airlift as well. You had both countries basically about to go to war with each other, right? And once the fighting starts between America and Russia, there's concerns about that leading to, to sort of the nuclear. Now that the sun is out, I'm going to put my little thing up on the window. 1 second here to help sort of get it out of the way. One moment, because it's a little bright even in my eyes behind me. One moment. Boom and boom. All right, hopefully. There we go. That helps. Yeah. It was annoying me just looking at it come there. I sort of figured this out the other week. After 13 or 14 years of living here, I finally figured out that I could hang something on my window to stop the sun from coming in. Very funny. Anyway, all right, let me see. I got a couple other, actually, I still do have a couple other stories. You know what we'll do? Tonight's one of those nights where, well, actually, because we've been doing a lot of questions, I'm going to go late because we've had a lot of questions, so I don't want to cut off at 7 o'clock. So I won't cut off at the hour. We'll go late and we'll skip the Discord chat tonight. Let me tell you about our Patreon really quick, and then a couple other stories we'll end with. We also have a Patreon too, which is kind of cool. Patreon is a neat way for you to basically support creators. And it's they don't take too much. Yeah, they take 10 or 15%. I mean, everybody does. They don't take too much money. And it's a way of making a commitment every month to give a gift to your creator. So, example, I've got people giving $5 a month, $10 a month, $25. Even one guy, he made me promise I won't name him anymore. One guy who gives $100 a month as a gift to support my work. Patreon is a neat way to be able to do that because it just charges you every month until you cut it off yourselves. We've also got it tied to my Discord community so that anybody who gives $5 a month or more, we do a Saturday morning chat every Saturday with the paid subscribers on TikTok and the paid Discord folks just to kind of hang out and stuff. Oh, Chris joined this weekend. Thanks for joining, Chris. Which is kind of fun. Anybody who's a $5 or more contributor on Patreon, and again, you got to link it to the Discord, you can access our VIP auctions on the Discord. We have regular public auctions, but we also have a separate auction for the paid members to give them basically it's a much smaller group of people. So you're bidding against a much smaller group of people as sort of my thanks to them. And frankly, you're just supporting my work. I mean, as far as what you get out of it, you're also supporting me because I do this for free. Nobody pays me, so to speak. I wish I was getting funded to do this. I literally have been paying my bills for the last 13 months with the gifts and everything you guys give me. So thank you for that. So yeah, please do check out the Patreon. As I said, it's a nice way to contribute. A lot of you are already familiar with it. If you already know it, then it should be pretty easy. But if you like my work and you think I'm doing a good job, just consider it if you would. I'd appreciate it. I know John needs to visit budget blinds. No, I looked into the blinds and I couldn't figure out how to get them. And all of a sudden I went, suction cups. So I've got suction cups up there holding up my little throw for the couch. And I'm like, it's not bad. Hey, for a guy solution, it's not bad. Okay, a couple more stories here. Oh, the Patreon, it's patreon.com/Aravosis. You guys have the link on the screen there. For you all, any link I talk about like this of my links, you can go to my profile on TikTok and look at the URL there, the link tree, and it's got all of my links, okay? Couple more stories. Hang on here. Germany is, I was telling you some more things coming. Germany is also going to buy 28 self-propelled howitzers to replace those it already sent Ukraine. It had already sent 14. And just a little detail, this is from Sky News. The Panzerhaubitze 2000 howitzer is one of the most powerful artillery weapons in the German military's arsenal. It can hit targets at a distance of 18.6 miles, which is like 25 kilometers or so, with standard ammunition, and more than 60 miles or 100 kilometers with advanced ammunitions. The Moldovan Defense Ministry announced joint military exercises with the US and the UK from March 27th to April 7th. That's very interesting. I thought that was kind of cool. We've had a lot of concern about the Ukrainians. Well, basically not about the Ukrainians, but about the Moldovans. So basically, Moldova, former Soviet state, now an independent country, more or less around here, okay? Transnistria, Transnistria is the territory of Moldova that the Russians have been occupying and basically tried to create a separate communist state out of it. But Moldova overall is here. Then you got Romania next to it, Slovenia, Hungary, etc. over here, right? So you got Moldova here. Moldova is not a member of the EU. They are not a member of NATO. So the Russians have pretty much been trying to take over Moldova. They've been trying to destabilize it for a while, and now there's concern of them actually invading, possibly, and trying to take over. And somebody, I suspect it was Western intelligence, got their hands on a Russian plan to take over Moldova by 2030. Okay? So very, very weird. What the Russians are doing. Well, they're clearly trying to destabilize it. We know that the government announced a number of arrests and things because the Russians basically were paying people like $10,000 to come and cause trouble at protests. They're basically paying Moldovans who are Russian sympathizers to do in Moldova what happened in America, the insurrection, the January 6th attack on our capital, to basically have people get so violent and so crazy that the government falls, that a new government takes over, and of course it would be a pro-Russian government, a pro-Putin government. In any case, that's the context of them announcing joint military drills with Britain and America. It doesn't mean, I don't know if it means anything. It's nice. I mean, it's nice. I don't know. What I mean is, clearly, we're trying to send a statement to Putin, and that's great. I'm not convinced that just because we're having joint military exercises, it tells Putin don't screw around. It does tell Putin, however, we take the area seriously. It's sort of a diplomatic way of saying be careful, be careful. Oh my God, stop at the insurrection. It was vandalism. Oh my God, stop at the insurrection. People died. Oh my God, they were trying to overthrow the government. Oh my God. Sorry, somebody got upset. No, I'm not going to. That's the one thing with the trolls and stuff. I will tell you guys the truth. I will go after Biden when Biden needs to be gone after. And folks who watch the show regularly know I'm not thrilled with Biden's handling of the war. I think Biden has been way too subservient and way too afraid of Putin. But stuff like the insurrection, I'm not going to let you get away with that. These people tried to overthrow the government. It was violent. People died. Cops died. And frankly, a lot more people could have died in the audience, and they're lucky they didn't die because the cops would have been right to shoot them had they wanted to. They did want to, but I mean, they would have had every right to. It was bad. It was very bad, and we shouldn't try to pretend in retrospect that the insurrection was like, okay. It wasn't okay. And most Americans agree with that, which is good, but still. All right, let's move on. So, British, I'll skip that little update really quick. Oh, here's Medvedev. Oh, yes, Medvedev. I have to bring him. So this is, since we started the show talking about the nuclear threat from Russia, I'm going to end the show with the nuclear threat from Russia. So our good friend Dmitry Medvedev, everybody remember, sure, we drink when we say the name Dmitry Medvedev for a variety of reasons, but he's alleged to have some issues. As the French do this, I don't know if other Europeans do this. The French do this to mean drunk. Or a drunk, to go like this to the nose. In America, we would do this. So it's almost as if you're drinking a glass. But the French do that, which I always love. So the Medvedev comes out and says today, listen to this. Oh, on Friday. He said this on Friday, excuse me. So Medvedev was the former prime minister and the former president of Russia in the 2000s. He was considered a moderate. He was considered a reformer, somebody who was going to bring Russia back to, its ties in Europe and this kind of stuff. He's now a lunatic. He's a pro-Putin lunatic who quite literally threatens nuclear war around 3 times a week. 3 times a week, this guy threatens nuclear war for a year now. He's clearly got he tweets all the time too. He's clearly got a screw loose. Listen to this. He warned against NATO. He warned against NATO weapons deliveries. He's claiming, again, if NATO gives weapons to Ukraine, there will be nuclear war. Well, we've been giving weapons to Ukraine for 396 days of this 10-day war, and there's been no nuclear war. But listen to this. He said Friday in an interview with Russian media that by NATO sending weapons to Ukraine, it was bringing a nuclear apocalypse closer. Medvedev, who previously served as president of Russia, also called for the free distribution of pirated copies of Western intellectual property on the internet, like content on Netflix, to cause maximum damage as retaliation for Western imposed sanctions. So his idea for how they're going to win the war is hurt Netflix by putting American movies online. I mean, again, I actually never knew that there, until years ago, somebody was going after me, and he would always post the comments. It was political reasons, wasn't very happy with me, somebody in town. And he would always post the attacks on me on my blog in the comments at like 2 and 3 a.m. And I always was like, how weird at like 3 a.m. somebody's in the American time, he was in Washington, is in the comments of my blogs writing crazy stuff. And finally, other people pointed it out to me and said, again, like people who drink too much, that's sort of a typical thing, is they kind of, late night kind of do crazy stuff like that. And you hear stuff like this, and I could imagine Medvedev sitting there at 3 a.m. with his shot of, his 50th shot of vodka, going, I found the way we can defeat America in the war. Netflix, put all your movies online. And it's like, dude, come on. Oop, is there a piece? There's a piece. Oh, nope. There's no lint on my camera. Nope. You're seeing a reflection from the. There's a reflection from the sun, but otherwise, very crazy. I mean, just crazy. All right, guys, let's do our questions. Our Q. False information. Uh-oh, YouTube fits out again, but it's back. All right. It's my mouse. I don't have a mouse. My mouse. I'm old enough to know not to tell. Oh, Netflix. Oh, no, that's good. Lepashko just said on TikTok, they should call it Netflix. Now that would have been brilliant for Medvedev to do, to at least come up with a cute name like that. Netflix. All right, let me pull up TikTok. So TikTok questions. Hang on here. All right. On TikTok, remember, you can submit questions via the link in my profile that says Q&A. The rest of you can submit them in the box on the bottom. Obviously, if you want to buy Super Chat questions, I love you. Thank you, Ben Madsen, for doing that. Or more gifts on TikTok, please do. Ben, sorry, I'm going to mention that place. What are your thoughts on Russia taking their rotation on the UN Security Council next month? Yeah, so the United Nations Security Council rotates between the various countries that are on the council, and Russia is one of the 15, right? Russia is one of the permanent members of the council, along with the U.S. and 3 others, and I mean, the United Nations Security Council can't do anything anyway at this point with regards to Ukraine, because the Russians are on it and China's on it. China, sure, China can sometimes abstain. They've sort of said, we're not going to vote, we're not going to take sides, except clearly they're on Russia's side, and they've been helping Russia a lot with buying oil and stuff like that. But the United Nations Security Council hasn't been able to do anything with regards to Ukraine, because if there's a veto, the proposal dies. Well, who's got the veto? Russia, America, China, Britain, and France. Well, Russia and America, at the very least, would keep vetoing each other, and certainly France and Britain would too. We'd all be vetoing Russia if Russia tried to do something horrible in the Security Council, and if we tried to do anything good with regard to Ukraine, Russia would be vetoing us. So I don't love Russia taking over. I think it's gross, and it's one of the aspects of the United Nations I don't love, because it's just gross, that Russia's taking over. It's like when we appoint, Saudi Arabia to be head of the, United Nations Human Rights Council or something, right? Just these countries that are abusers, right, to be put there. But I just don't know. I don't think it matters, because unfortunately the UN Security Council doesn't matter anyway. So, it gives Russia control, which is gross, but it's not going to change anything. And to some degree, it gives us a talking point too. So every time something happens, we talk about how gross it is that Russia's the chairman of the council, the chair of the council, but at the same time, Russia's being sought, that its leaders are being sought for war crimes. that Putin's an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court of The Hague. So, that doesn't hurt. So there you go. That's my thoughts on that. Thank you for that. Let me pull up a TikTok question from Crikey. It's Mark. Worst case, and Russia uses a nuke and NATO gets involved. Where do they stop? At the border or invade Russia until Putin outed? They'd stop at the border. Yeah. Yeah, they would. We would invade Russia. Part of the problem becomes it's one thing in terms of Russia's nuclear policy, if you believe it, because keep in mind, it's what they claim are the rules for when they would use nukes. It doesn't mean those are the rules, right? The rules could be whatever Putin wants them to be, is my guess. But nonetheless, Russia claims that one of the like 4 reasons it might use nukes, or it would finally be justified in using nukes in any conflict, would be when Russia's existence is threatened, right? It's sort of an existential threat to Russia. That is not fighting in Ukraine. That is not fighting in Crimea. That's why I also think the Crimea thing is BS. Thank you, Allie, for the vote. That's one of my faves. That's why I also think the Crimea threat is BS. Like, if the Ukrainians try to take back Crimea, then the Russians will use nukes. Putin would love Crimea, but Crimea has been Ukraine. No one recognizes it as part of Russia. It's not as if Ukraine invades and tries to annex a part of Russia. Now that would be a different story, right? Ukraine goes into Russia and starts, literally taking parts of Russia. Then I think you run the risk of Russia using nukes. I think that would be a possibility. Not Ukraine attacking, that's a different thing. But Ukraine actually taking over part of Russia. Then the Russians go, okay, that's it, get out, or we're going to keep bombing your cities one by one, right? So that's when you take it seriously, in my view. But otherwise, as far as NATO, that's the reason I was going to say, sorry, to get back to your question, if we were to get into the war because Russia uses nukes against Ukraine, I think we would stop at the border with Russia for the very reasons I just said, because fighting in Ukraine is one thing. Starting to take over Russian territory is another. And that's where the Russians could say, wait a minute, right? In Ukraine, in other words, I think it's proportional doing it in Ukraine. I think it might be perceived as disproportionate going in Russia as well. Who knows? But that's my take for that. Just check here. Well, that's a whole other thing. Yeah, Mike is saying Russia should have never gotten the seat at the USSR. Well, this is exactly what I've been saying. At the very least, it should have rotated between Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia. Exactly. So one of the issues with Russia taking over the United Nations Security Council is that when the Soviet Union had a seat in the United Nations, right? The Soviet Union was one of the 5 permanent members, not Russia. And the Soviet Union was comprised of 15 countries, basically, or 15 republics, but basically countries that Russia ate up and held hostage, in essence. But Ukraine, right? There was a Ukraine republic. There was a Latvian, Lithuanian, Estonian independent countries that Russia kidnapped, of course. Tajikistan, God, I'm already forgetting them all. Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, you get it, right? Well, they were all equally part of Russia part of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union ceased existing in 1991, all those countries had the right to the Soviet Union's seat at the UN and to the Soviet Union's seat on the Security Council. What did we do? We gave Russia the Soviet Union seat. So Russia ended up being the one who gets to be on the Security Council and a permanent member that can veto everything instead of it's switching between all 15 countries. Again, we had the ability, first of all, legally, I think there's no question that it wasn't Russia. It was the 15 different countries, right? They were all part of the Soviet Union. They were all the successor states to the Soviet Union. But to make it go more nicely, and frankly, because we were being nice guys, it's funny that Russia thinks we were mean to them when they lost the Cold War after terrorizing the world for 70 years and kidnapping half of Europe for 50 of the 45 of those years, that they thought we were being mean. Well, we were actually too nice because we gave Russia the seat on the United Nations, and they've been causing hell on the Security Council ever since. So, yeah. So that's what Mike was getting at. But, yeah, you are right, Mike. You are right. More questions here on TikTok. Why don't the people of Belarus take back their country and stand up to Putin and his cronies? They've tried before. The Russians, a couple of years ago, they tried, and the Russians came in and crushed them. The public apparently not too thrilled with Putin, not too thrilled with Lukashenko, the dictator. Except, it's a dictatorship. It's not easy to rise up in a dictatorship. They've tried before, though. Do you think that the only reason some Russian politicians say they like the war is so they don't get killed? Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. This is from Nick. Oh, absolutely, Nick. Yeah, in Russia, you risk going to jail if you say you don't like the war, right? So absolutely, I think a lot of the support for the war, a lot of it is probably genuine, but a lot of it from people publicly is they'll at least go to jail and at worst get thrown out a window, thrown out a balcony is how it's Putin's sort of preferred method of late has been literally throwing people off of balconies. We've been seeing it repeatedly with some of the top businessmen and their families being killed too. So yeah, no, that's exactly why. Push downstairs, yeah. I mean, they would have you killed. It is a full-fledged, it's a full-fledged dictatorship. It's terrible. Oops. I thought, did my comments stop on YouTube? Oh, they're still there. Just people aren't commenting. Okay. Let me see here. More questions here. You need medical help for my eye, maybe, because my eye's been driving me kind of crazy. Otherwise, thank you though. I've been feeling pretty good, Darko, but appreciate that. Gravitational accident. Okay. Thank you, Happy Beach, for the superpower. All right, let me go back to the Q&A here. Like I said, we'll go late tonight with the questions. All right, guys. Oh, Magical, I do see yours. I will read it. Sorry. Quick thanks for the gifts here. Danke Shane, thank you for that. I read that Russia was building trenches and defensive positions in Crimea to battle the exodus of people. That I don't know. What we've heard, thank you, Magical, for that. So Crimea down here, as I said, Crimea is the Ukrainian territory. This is sort of how the war started. Russia invaded and took Crimea in 2014. Then they invaded and kind of took the rest of this last year, more or less. There's a little more than that they did, but still. I do know that they have been building trenches and defensive positions. Crimea, Zaporizhia, Mariupol, and areas around here, because they're afraid of the Ukrainians coming and taking it back. They're really concerned about the Ukrainians taking Zaporizhia because it would cut the two Russian-occupied territories in half, right? I think if the Ukrainians took this back, they're worried about the Ukrainians eventually coming and making a stab for Crimea because Crimea is what Putin really wants, but also Crimea is Ukrainian, and Ukraine wants it back, and the Russians really don't want to lose Crimea. Okay, so I know they've been making defensive structures there, but it's to defend Crimea. It could be true. I've not read anything that talked about trying to stop people from leaving Crimea. I have read something suggesting some people are leaving Crimea, the Russians, because they're just worried about the possible fighting with the Ukrainian attack. Because the Ukrainians. But in any case, we can talk about it. Sorry. More questions on TikTok. Okay, there's a good question. Small town nerd. Does moving nukes into Belarus actually equal an escalation or more scare tactics? Probably both. Thoughts on a secret deal where Putin can escape to China? It's probably both. I think it is an escalation. Oh, we're doing Christmas gifts. I don't mind the Christmas gifts. Thank you, Kanelsi. It is an escalation because you're moving more nukes close to NATO borders. One, right? Because you got Poland and the Baltic states there. Two, you're moving nukes to a country where the nukes have not been before, right? So that's an escalation as well. So it's an escalation in that sense. It's not an escalation in the sense that, they're using them, right? But I think it's an escalation. Thoughts on a secret deal where Putin can escape to China? Well, I mean, what I think he's talking about is the idea that part of the deal to broker the war at the end, if Putin really loses, is that Putin's allowed to survive, but can go and live in China the rest of his life or whatever. I guess it depends. It depends what's agreed to, right? I'm a lawyer by training, among other things. I mean, I've trained international relations as well. But one of the things that they sort of try to get through your head in terms of law, thank you, DBY, for that, is to get what you can and then settle for the best you can get, generally speaking. If the best we can get, if we can If we can get a significantly better deal, I say we meaning collectively we, okay, everyone fighting on behalf of Ukraine. If we can get a significantly better deal by letting Putin live and letting him live the rest of his days in China, I'd be okay with that. If it meant, for example, Ukraine could get all of its land back, Ukraine could get reparations from Russia, if we had to agree to let Putin, go to China. Now, the International Criminal Court could still come after him, but they're not going to get him in China. I potentially would be okay with that if there were, again, if the Ukrainians get enough out of it. Now, the Ukrainians would have to agree to it. It's their peace deal, but I think those are the kind of things I think what I don't like in negotiations is people who think you should cave from the beginning. In other words, you shouldn't just give in from the beginning and say, oh, it's okay, Putin can keep Crimea, Putin can do blah, blah, blah. But at the end, you should be willing to compromise unless the compromise goes too far. Letting Putin survive and not go to jail, even though he deserves it, if Ukraine were to get everything it wanted, I'd be okay with it if Ukraine were able to get everything it wanted, but that's a lot, right? Getting all the land back is going to be hard enough, I think, unfortunately, AEI, they're conservative. I mean, I think they're smart people, American Enterprise Institute, but they're definitely conservative. So they're going to have a conservative bias. So just be aware of that, but I think they're smart. Yes. They're definitely representing one political view though, or leaning one. Domenichini, I don't know. Let me see here. I don't know. Usually Roshin's yelling at me when I don't, I don't see a super chat. What super chat? Sorry. Mods, did Domenichini have a super chat here? I'm not seeing it. Unless it was way at the beginning. I ain't seeing it. Steven? Okay, I'm not seeing anything here. You sure about that? Oh, Kaliningrad. Yeah, we talked about Kaliningrad. Yeah. The idea, that was the question about Kaliningrad, which was, the Russians have already, I think actually you made a statement. I don't think you asked a question, but you were saying, Russians have already been in Kaliningrad. They have nukes there. They're already on NATO's border, blah, blah, blah. So it's not like it's that big of a difference. The camera shakes when I move my table. And I saw that to Frank. Thank you, Kanowski. I did, out of my eye, I'm like, there's a hot dog going on TikTok. What is that? Thank you for that. That was cute. Domenichini's drinking too much. Don't drink, Dmitry Medvedev Domenichini. Have you heard about the Russian spies in Poland? Yes. Poland, there were a couple different European countries today. I think, oops, sorry, I keep hitting the mic. I think Ukraine may have said they found some spies. Poland may have as well. I forget. I didn't really sort of get into it because I didn't think it was newsy enough. But yeah, a couple different countries said they had sort of found Russian spies today. Does Russia allow female soldiers? If not, will they? Somebody help me out here. Not to the extent the Ukrainians do. I know that. The Ukrainians, like 20% of their military is women, and women do, I think, real military jobs. I've seen women in the trenches. You don't see women, you don't hear about women so they've got women, but what do the Russians do though? You don't hear about women in the Russian trenches, right? That you don't see. But what are they using the women for? To the front line? But are they using them for the actual frontline armed soldiers shooting at the Ukrainians? You don't hear about it a lot, and you hear about the Ukrainian women, right? Remember the beginning of the war, there were 15 Ukrainian women exchanged as prisoners of war. You don't hear about any Russian. That's what I'm wondering. Callum is saying the women in the Russian military are usually nurses, etc. That's my sense. They're medical. Lydia is saying, in other words, they have feminine jobs. They have female jobs. In other words, the way we would think about it back in 1970, for example, right? Or 1980, maybe, if you're being a little more liberal. Sure, we let women in the military. They're all nurses or chaplains, right? Priests or whatever. But that's, yeah. That's what I thought. Whereas the Ukrainians, it's a much more significant presence of women in real jobs. I don't know. Are women 100% equal in the Ukrainian military? Are they able to do all the jobs the men do? I know you've got women in the trenches, which is very significant, right? So we're talking like, they dig in the ground and they're sleeping in the ground fighting the Russians, and you see women there. But I don't know what the if anybody knows about the Ukraine as far as is it 100% equal for women. Women were only allowed in combat roles in the UK as of 2020. That's interesting. I know there were women snipers. In which country, though? Oh, okay. Did not see that question. Okay, Dan. So Domenichini was saying, yes, Solomia is saying medicine and cooking, exactly. Okay, so Domenichini's question, what I didn't see anywhere, was if Putin took a train to Kaliningrad, would they stop the train and arrest him? Well, that gets interesting. So, okay, you'd have to look at the map and see where Kaliningrad is. Sorry, like I said, I feel like the last couple of days, I feel like I have something in my eye. It's very annoying. But the Kaliningrad, Russian territory inside Europe, go sort of look on a map where Poland is, go to northeast Poland, southwest Lithuania, and you'll see this territory of Kaliningrad. It's Russian. And to get there, you've got to cross Lithuania or Poland or airspace. But if you were to come by land, you would come right by train. If he were to do that, if Putin were to come that way, I mean, it then becomes the question for Lithuania and Poland whether they want to stop him. Not Poland. Is it? I'm sorry. I'm getting screwed up here. It's Germany, not Poland. It's not northwest Poland. It's oh no, it would be north. It would be north. Yeah, it would be Poland. Is it closer to Germany or closer to Poland? I've got to look at my map for Kaliningrad again. Now I'm feeling. Hold on a second. I mean, like I can see it right there, sort of southwest Lithuania, but I always get confused. Is it Poland? But is Germany close by? It's Poland then. Yeah, isn't Germany close by though? Hang on. Kaliningrad. One moment here. Yeah, it's north of Poland. There we go. Yeah, it's north of Poland. Okay. Yeah. So it's northeastern Poland and southwestern Lithuania. That's what I thought. So let me try to. Here, you guys can see on my map here. So the red dot is Kaliningrad, and you can see how Belarus is to the east. The Baltic states are north. Russia isn't until you get further east. So it's right north of Poland. You guys can see sort of here. So you see how it's north of Poland, and it's right south. Trust me on it being. Well, here you can see even better because here you can see the Baltic states. So you see Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. Below it is Poland, and then and then Stockholm to the northwest. Now you guys can see. Yep, there you go. So you see Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, and Kaliningrad, and then Poland, and then Stockholm way up there. Stockholm. So that's how you can see it. So if you were to take a train across. Yeah, I mean, potentially, getting warm now. They could potentially stop him. I mean, the question's going to be for any country whether they would dare arrest Putin, right? I mean, because Russia, that was one of the reasons Russia threatened nuclear war last week. They again threatened nuclear war against any country that decided to arrest Putin. Would they? I don't know. Lithuania and Poland? I don't know. Well, here's the thing too. I just don't know. I don't know what they would do. That's a really interesting question. Whether they would sort of have the nerve to do it and be afraid that the Russians might invade. I just don't know. What else we got? We can do a few more questions, guys, and then call it quits. I feel the energy draining from everyone, so I don't want to belabor it too much here. TikTok. Let me do maybe one more question here on TikTok, and then we'll go. Well, that's an interesting question. Okay, so JSM Johnny is saying, what if Russia were to let a nuke go off and play it off as an accident? How would the world respond? That's the problem. First of all, we would have to figure out, no matter what happened with the nuke, we'd have to figure out who did it, right? So was it an accident? Was it real? Like, why would, we wouldn't just respond and we wouldn't necessarily even respond and bomb Russia until we were certain it was first of all, was it a Russian attack or was it a terrorist attack or a third party, right? Well, it wouldn't be going off by accident, but what he was talking about, Dan, was more like a rogue situation, right? Like some general decides to blow up a nuke or something, right? That somehow it gets out of hand that way. So it might not be an accident where it blows up by accident, but it could be like some rogue general. And then Putin gets on the phone and says, I'm telling you, Mr. President, this was a movie I watched the other day, Failsafe or whatever it was, right? Where, I'm telling you, Mr. President, it wasn't on purpose. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. You've got to, the president's going to have to figure that out and decide, okay, do we believe these guys or not? I mean, there certainly is an argument for why would Russia just blow up a nuke? Like it wouldn't, on purpose? Doesn't quite make sense. Like blowing it up and denying it? By the second time they do it, then it's clearly on purpose. Sum of all fears was that, I remember I saw this movie. Or the West could respond and say, you know what? You clearly don't know what, like in Ukraine, you clearly don't know what you're doing. You clearly don't have the control over your nuclear weapons. You're pulling them out now and you're pulling out and you've got 3 days to pull out all of your weapons and your troops or we're coming in because clearly we can't trust that you can control your own nuclear weapons. So that could be the response you could see from the West in that case, All right, let me do a quick summary and then we're going to call it quits, guys. All right, quick summary of the stories we covered today really quick. Putin is going to be sending tactical nukes to Belarus, he claims. I talked all about that. At the same time, top Putin advisor threatened nuclear war again. Hungary approved Finland joining NATO, but not Sweden. The Wall Street Journal says Russia is helping Iran gain advanced digital surveillance capabilities. German tanks arrived in Ukraine today, or as of today. Also, weapons from, or I should say, like vehicles, armed vehicles from the U.S., including Strykers and Cougars, Challengers from Britain, Challenger tanks, and Marder infantry fighting vehicles from Germany. Germany is also going to be buying 28 self-propelled howitzers to replace the artillery that it already sent to Ukraine. The Moldovan Defense Ministry announced joint military exercises with the U.S., the U.K., coming up in about, starting today, actually. And finally, Dmitry Medvedev, our resident Russian alcoholic, threatened today more nuclear war because that's just the kind of guy he is. All right, guys, let's call it quits. I will see you all tomorrow, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. As always, feel free to check out our store at store.aravosis.com. More cool Ukrainian stuff. And again, half the proceeds go to Ukraine. And our Discord and my Patreon. All of the links for that are in my profile on TikTok. Click the link and it'll take you to all of those. For you guys, aravosis.com that's on the screen will take you there. And thank you for joining us. And thank you for mods for going after the trolls today. Thank you, Kanowski, for the gift. I at least gleaned from what I was seeing in the comments that there were a lot of trolls on TikTok and the mods were doing a good job. So thank you. I try not to follow what the trolls are actually doing because it can throw you if you're in the middle of talking, which is what they're trying to do. So I just caught the mods going, or people saying, good job, mods, you're being good tonight. So thank you, guys. All right, guys, I will see you all tomorrow night, and we'll try to do Discord tomorrow, but since we're 20 minutes over, I'd like to call it quits for now. All right? Okay. Thank you for the gifts, guys. See you guys tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday. All right. Bye-bye. Burp.